Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Kurpius. I'm a global GTM specialist covering edge security, and I want to welcome you to the Security 202 session. And in this session, we're going to be covering web application protection on AWS. So let's go ahead and get started. I think it's important to start in and cover and talk about what we've heard from our customers over the course of the last 2 years. So we've talked to a number of customers trying to understand how security and implementing security is impacting their business. And we heard a lot of reoccurring themes, which we're going to talk about. But then in the midst of all this, we had a big change in the macro environment from what we saw last year in 2020, which also created more changes in the environment, right? And impacted security even that much more. So some of the recurring themes that we're hearing is all around speed to market. So our customers have to move fast, and typically it's looked at that security might get in the way of that, right? Might not be helping customers move faster, but maybe even slowing them down. And so what you're going to see is a lot of these points come together, right? So the friction added when we start talking about how we can add security to the applications you're building, then hinders speed to the market. And if the viewpoint is security is hard and slows things down, then it might not help drive innovation, or maybe some of the innovative thoughts will not come out because they view potential roadblocks from securing that innovation. And while all this is going on, we have to make sure we're helping you and you're helping your customers and your users have an unbelievable user experience. And with all of this, we have to have flexibility for changes. So we may have a vision, we may be going down that path, but if something happens in the macro environment, we need to have the flexibility to make changes on the go. And so these are some of most of the call outs as we brought them down to 5 main areas. And so what I want to cover today is how our application security services that help protect your layer 7 of your applications help in these areas. So I'll first start with, amongst all of the key initiatives that you have or that our customers have, there's a big challenge in the way, which is as we start moving some of our applications out to the cloud and opening them up to the internet, we see these things like DDoS attacks. We see the big volumetric attacks like SYN floods. We're starting to hear about some of the application vulnerabilities that we have to be aware of that the OWASP Top 10 calls out. Things like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, and then bots. How do we know? There's always this balance of how do we know if we're letting in customers? Are we letting in bots? Are they good bots or are they bad bots? So these are the challenges that pop up when we start to have to put our applications on in the cloud and open them up to the world. So we're going to talk about how we can help in these areas. And what we do to help in these areas is we have 3 main services. So I'll start with the service in the middle, which is Shield Advanced. And I start with this because this is our premium offer that helps our customers who have mission-critical applications and protect those applications from those volumetric DDoS attacks or even the layer 7 application attacks. And AWS Shield Advanced includes in the package AWS WAF and Firewall Manager. And AWS Shield Advanced is integral and integrates with our AWS WAF. And our WAF is our layer 7 firewall that helps against some of the application vulnerabilities, some of the SQL injections, and those OWASP Top 10 types of events. And then finally, Firewall Manager. Our Firewall Manager is very important to the overall approach and to helping our customers have agility, move fast, because it does essentially manage these services amongst others. So we'll start there. So we'll start with Firewall Manager. And as I said, not only does it manage centrally AWS WAF and AWS Shield, but it also manages our security groups centrally and a new service that we were excited to launch, and you'll probably see in potentially other sessions here at the summit, which is our network firewall. So Firewall Manager acts as that central location where you can choose the policy that you want to deploy globally, whether it's different accounts within a region, different regions within an availability zone. However you want to do that, you can do that centrally. You can configure it once and deploy it everywhere. And once you create that initial security policy, you'll see that in Firewall Manager. So hence the, put the time in configuring it once, and then you can use that same policy in other accounts and other regions as well. It also ensures consistent protections from day one. So we give you the ability to set guardrails that will say, if your business sets up an application, then make sure at a minimum there are these guardrails. And the guardrails could be apply AWS WAF and apply Shield Advanced. And if the service or the application is set up without those guardrail services, then we can go ahead and be notified of that and roll that back. And that really speaks to the last point around compliance. So if you have compliance or guardrails that are not being taken advantage of, or not being implemented, then you can choose whether you want to just receive the notification so you can go talk to that group, or we give you the ability to automatically, in an automated fashion, roll back that configuration to the configuration that you deem compliant. And we do that with Firewall Manager on the back end, syncs with AWS organizations and AWS config as well. And then it's definitely important to call out the fact that Firewall Manager, now managing centrally all of these services, it also feeds into Security Hub to really help with the compliance and some of the mandates and audits that our customers have to abide by daily. So it really helps centralize your policy and then centralize your audits to hopefully help you save time and resources. So as you look to set up application security, and you can utilize, we recommend starting with Firewall Manager so you can deploy that out simply from one location centrally. Then you can start to deploy the services. Now we'll talk about DDoS protection. And again, this is more for those big volumetrics types of events that we've probably seen in the news. I think last year, about the middle of the year, we saw a big increase in some of the more volumetric style of events. So this service integrates seamlessly with some of the services that our customers are already using today to help the speed of their applications, like AWS or Amazon CloudFront, our Elastic Load Balancers, our EIPs, AGA, which is kind of a new service, our Global Accelerator, and then Route 53. So seamless integration with those services. And so what do we bring to with that integration with those services? So starting with and as I had discussed kind of in the opening slide, Shield Advanced is that premium protection. So if you have an application that is mission critical that cannot experience downtime, this will be the approach and the service that you're going to want to look into. And so it gives the added layer of DDoS protection over and above our Shield standard, our standard set of protection that all customers get. And so what is that added protection? You're going to get 24/7 support from our Shield response team. And this is important. You're always going to have a team to lean on if needed. Our Shield Advanced service does a lot of the mitigation, but there are times where some different some events at some point in time you'll need someone to lean on. You'll need advice. You'll need help. This team is going to be there 24/7 to help you do that. With that, you get alert notifications. So you're going to get visibility into the UI. You'll get alert notifications on what anomalies and what events might be happening. And with that, you'll have a threat dashboard as well as part of the service. And we've done a lot to We've added a lot to this dashboard over the last year, and you'll continue to see that going forward. Just we want to give you more visibility into what your applications are experiencing from a DDoS perspective. And so now I'll kind of transition into the added security or the added benefits from a detection perspective that you get with Shield Advanced. And so it's important to know that we add, when you protect a resource with Shield Advanced, you're going to get added detection from an adaptive layer 3 and layer 4 protection. So the service will always adapt and look and see if there is an application that is experiencing a spike that we deem to be an event or a DDoS event. We can adaptively add mitigations to that event for maybe 5 minutes, right? And then it automatically turns off. And if we see that again, maybe we can do it again for, let's say, 10 minutes. So there's always that going on, and that's additional. But we also couple that with an L7 anomaly detection. And this is where the integration with Shield Advanced and WAF is very important. So what we're looking at is, from an L7 perspective, we're baselining. And we're saying, looking at that, and if we see an anomaly, then we can step in, do added mitigation, or add a notification to your team. And then the next two services I'll cover, these are new services that we were excited to launch last year. And some of you, if you're aware of Shield Advanced, you might not know about this, but first one being health-based detection, health-based detection, which we do with Route 53. So essentially what this allows you to do is always have a view into, is that application healthy? So going back to the adaptive L3 and L4 protection, and then we start baselining, we see maybe an anomaly detection on the L7. Then we can also look at the health-based detection from Route 53 to say, is the actual application down? Because if it's not down, or if it's healthy, then maybe that's a false positive, and we can report on it, but we don't have to mitigate that. Or the other end of the spectrum, maybe we're seeing some anomaly detection, but the application is not in good health. It's down, it's not responding. Then we can go ahead and move to the second big launch from last year, which is our proactive event response. And what this allows us to do is work with you in notifying, or first identifying who you'd like to be notified if we see what you deem to be a scenario that you want to be called, maybe you want to be woken up at 3 a.m., then we'll do that automatically for you. So as we proactively reach out and say, hey, we've seen an anomaly, the health of the application is unhealthy, and so we notify you. But as we notify you, our SRT team has the ability to start looking at the logs, looking at what's going on, in hopes of, when we get you out of bed at 3 a.m., we're going to be ready to talk about the mitigation that is needed so that we're not starting from scratch. So that's very important for our customers. And the last piece of this, I kind of already touched on it, but Shield Advanced allows for a bundled approach of providing AWS WAF at no additional cost, where Shield Advanced is protecting the resource. Also gives Firewall Manager at no additional cost, and provides a cost scaling protection. And so what this means is if you are protecting a resource with Shield Advanced, and you are using all of the correct best practices, like you have health-based detection set up, you have WAF logging set up, then if you see a DDoS event and it spikes your resources, then we will help comp and through a SIM ticket, help cover the added cost from the spike in resources from that DDoS event. And so, the good thing in the cloud, sometimes, we have to let the resources expand to get the DDoS event under control. So in this case, what we're saying is we'll go ahead and comp you for that if or when we set up a SIM ticket. And the SIM ticket can typically be in coordination with your TAM or your SA or my team. Okay, so for layer 7 protection, so what we just talked about was more the volumetric, the Shield Advanced package. And so Layer 7 protection is our WAF. I covered that briefly as it integrates with Shield. But to go into more detail, our WAF, there have been some big changes over the last year. So some of you, if you're familiar with WAF, you might know or you might not know that we now have our own AWS managed rules. So we allow you to go in and choose rules that we curate, we manage, and it's a really easy to set up. It's more or less one click. You can do some customization, but that's a good starting point for our customers. With that, we allow you to add customization as well. Whether the customization is geolocation, whether it's rate-based rules, it might be other header information that's specific to your applications. We allow you to customize those rules as well. We are very excited to announce that we're launching bot, I think as of this recording, last week. So we're excited to launch bot. I'll go more into that here in the next slide, but that is going to integrate seamlessly into WAF. And then finally, it's important to call out the partnerships that we have. And we hear from our customers all the time that if there was one solution that solved their security problems, that'd be great, but we all know that's not reality. And they really want a layered approach, and we want to give them the tools needed, or the tools that they need to do the layered approach. So with that said, we allow our customers to go into the partner marketing, or through our partner marketing portal, they can sign up for rules within WAF from the Checkpoints of the world, from the F5s and Impervas, if they so choose to add in more intelligence into their web ACL. So that's a flexibility that's very important for our customers. So definitely important to call out. Now, as seen in Shield Advanced, our AWS WAF seamlessly integrates with the resources that you're probably already using for a good application resiliency hygiene. Things like CloudFront, our application load balancers, our Amazon API Gateway, and a newer service called AWS AppSync. So seamless one-click integration with those resources that you're already using, and then you can add Layer 7 protection with our AWS WAF fairly easy. Now, bot control. I mentioned we're excited about this launch. So as I said, our bot control, the first launch of our bot control will be a managed rule within WAF. So it will be very simple to see that in the console and turn on. There will be some customization if you so choose. But we are, because it is an additional cost for bot control, we do have a new feature that we're adding to WAF that we call Scope Down. So we allow you to pick and choose and customize what traffic you want to actually go through the bot control filter. So a good example of this is if you have an image out there, you know you don't want the traffic going to that image through the bot control filter. So you can do a scope down statement and take that out, thus saving you money and resources. With bot control, we're going to have a bot category that will allow you to choose what you deem as good bots versus maybe not so good bots. And so our customers all differ from what they like to allow access to their sites as far as scrapers and some of the advertising bots. So we're going to leave that up to you to decide. And it's pretty simple, pretty easy to go in there and customize that. And a very, very important call out is for all the customers that are already using WAF, you're going to have the ability, once this is launched, you can go into your console and see reporting. It's going to be free reporting, and it's going to show you what this bot control is seeing from how much percentage of your traffic that is bots already. So to give you a pretty good visibility into what's going on in your environment. And then from there, you can choose to just turn it on. Or you can maybe kind of investigate from there, but it's going to be a good view into answering the question for customers is, I don't know what percentage of my traffic is bots, and it's hard for some of our customers to visualize that. So you're going to get that in the service. So with that, I hope that shows how we integrate application protection into our services, and to hopefully give you that agility, give you the speed you need, and make this simplicity, try to take away as much friction as possible as you build your applications hastily, definitely given last year, or what we saw in 2020. So with that, I want to now move over to covering the common web architectures that we see our customers deploy. And there's four main architectures we're going to talk about. And I'm going to start with the most common approach architecture that we see, and that's protecting web applications. So what you're going to see here is some of the services that most of you will probably already be aware of. A lot of our customers, when they're putting applications in the cloud and opening them up to the internet, they use some of our resources that help scale and help the user experience, like CloudFront, our load balancers, to make sure there's, the requests are balanced out and there's no stall in traffic. So as you've kind of heard me say, what we're doing is we're tying in our services into that infrastructure that you may already have set up. So in this case, for a customer that's wanting to protect a web application, what we've done here is we've integrated Shield Advanced into the CloudFront distribution, along with adding WAF to that as well. And then depending on how you set up your infrastructure, we also can add the protection at the load balancer as well. So in this case, we're doing DNS with Route 53. Traffic's going through CloudFront, which is protected by Shield Advanced and WAF, and can go through to the application, or depending on if you have a load balancer there, you can do that as well with the protection. And as I had noted before, in the console, you can push this policy out centrally with Firewall Manager. Choose one policy and deploy everywhere, and then the seamless integration of WAF and Shield into these resources. The second architecture that we're seeing a lot now is an architecture that helps latency-sensitive applications. And really what we're adding here is one of our newer services called AWS Global Accelerator. And with Global Accelerator, Shield Advanced integrates and protects Global Accelerator. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing adding Global Accelerator into the infrastructure, and we're attaching Shield Advanced for protection at Global Accelerator. And we're also can protect your Elastic IPs or EIPs with Shield Advanced as well. So depending on how the traffic's coming in, if it's coming in through Global Accelerator, we have added protection there with Shield Advanced, or if it's EIP, we're also using Shield Advanced to protect those resources as well. For the third approach or architecture is for serverless applications. So again, you're going to see some of the common AWS resources that our customers use, like CloudFront and like Route 53. What we're doing is we're inserting the API gateway before your serverless architecture. And with that, our AWS WAF integrates with API gateway. So depending on how our customers set up their environment, if they send the traffic through CloudFront, in this case, we're going to have Shield Advanced and WAF on CloudFront, protecting those distributions. And then we also have the ability to put WAF on the API gateway closer to the serverless applications themselves. So a lot of flexibility here, but again, the takeaway here is we're building security into the resources and the architecture that you're most likely already building. And finally, this is a interesting call out because it's starting to bubble up more and more with our customers. And that is for our customers that want to move their applications to the cloud, but they do have some applications that they just absolutely cannot move to the cloud yet. We have the ability to help protect those on-prem applications. And this architecture shows that. So what we're doing here is we are using CloudFront and Route 53. So the customer's traffic would first come to CloudFront and Route 53. We would then have our security services on, in this case, Route 53 and CloudFront, Shield Advanced on both, and then, of course, AWS WAF on CloudFront. And then depending on how they would like to set up their traffic, if they want to do a load balancer first, they can. But they can then take that traffic from CloudFront and put it down to their data center. And they can do that either from our TGW perspective, our transit gateway, or a direct connect or a VPN. But we give the flexibility for a customer to utilize the load balancer as well. And then, as you've seen on the previous 3 architectures, we have the ability to put Shield Advanced and WAF on the load balancer. So it all depends on how you want to do it. But the key takeaway here is we give you the flexibility to cover your applications in the cloud. But also, if you have important applications on-prem that you might need to protect, you can do so using this architecture. So with that, I want to leave it with a case study. And this really speaks to the benefits of Shield Advanced and all of these services coming together. So we had a situation where a gaming customer was experiencing a DDoS event, and they were notified of the event because of the increase in traffic errors, the unhealthiness of the applications, and some of the connections were dropping for some of their users. So it was a big problem for them. So what did they do? They reached out to our SRT, or Shield Response team, that are available as you subscribe to Shield Advanced, and asked for help. They really didn't have the correct setup and follow the best practices as setting up Shield Advanced in their environment. And so they asked Shield Response team for help. And so our Shield Response team stepped in and took a look at their environment and noticed 4,000 plus IPs that were causing a problem. They created an IP block list and then added that block list to the IP table in WAF, and then created an additional WAF rule, customized rule, to block requests with no cookie header. And so what were the outcomes of that? So if you look at some of these screenshots, first, if you look at the request counts, before calling SRT, they were all over the place, and you can see the resource drain, all the new traffic causing problems. And then when we did the implementation and the mitigation, you can see it trail off right away. So now we have the request counts returned back to normal. We have the errors that were going all over the place until we put the mitigation in place. You see the errors go back down to 0. And then from a WAF request perspective, again, you can see it out of whack, going just about haywire. And then once we put the mitigation in place, you can see in blue the allowed request goes back to normal. And you'll see a few other spikes after the mitigation on blocking the problem, and then that averaging out as well. So with that, I hope your takeaway is seeing how we can seamlessly help you add application security to the environment that you're building, to the applications that you're trying to move fast or change fast. We're hoping that the flexibility of what we're and the integrations that we're giving you help you accelerate the speed of your business. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this session. And I will leave it with, we all try to keep in front of the ever-changing security industry. So make sure you go and dive deeper on whatever you want to dive deep in, whether it's learning online for the 25 free digital courses. But you can go to visit aws.training/security to get more information. So again, I want to thank you and have a good day.